Everybody stop.
Oh, I need one of those.
You're welcome. This is my buddy Pat, who goes by the artist name Stereo Image, and I actually found out during the filming of this video that his entire approach is 100% improvised, using the analog rhythm, the FaderFox PC-12, Torso T1 sequencer, Mod Dwarf, the 1010 Music Blackbox, as well as an Allen and Heath Xone K2. This video is a pretty thorough breakdown of how he uses each instrument within his set. There's also a healthy amount of tips and tricks and just like general pro tips on putting together a techno set like this. This video is sponsored by DistroKid. If you're looking to officially release your own music to all major streaming platforms, and especially if you're an independent artist or producer, DistroKid is the way to go. And we'll be getting into reasons why later in this video. There's also affiliate links for all of the gear mentioned in this video. Consider using those links if you'd like to support what I do. Creating these sorts of videos takes time. It's definitely not free. And so any little bit of support goes a long way. I would get a small kickback from these sales. Doesn't cost you anything extra. And so that's that. Let's get on with this video.
I make techno, and I like to make it as live, off the cuff, and improvised as possible. It's kind of hard to do on the rhythm alone because it's not super tactile and it's super menu divey, but everything that I need to make the music that I want is pretty much in here. So that's why I added this guy, the FaderFox. This just gives me the ability to really play the rhythm like an instrument.
So what made you choose the FaderFox PC-12 for this particular setup? Is it the amount of control you have?
When it comes to that many potentiometers, there's not that many options.
Yeah.
And I needed a lot. And it's really like built for it, like perfectly.
Yeah.
Same form factor.
Yeah.
You know, this is 12 channels. There's 12 rows here. So it was kind of a no-brainer. What I like about this is that I can choose to map whatever control I need in here. If ever there's a control that I notice that I'm never reaching for all that much, I can just like swap it out. I touch everything on a set. Like I touch all of these.
Okay, so you have all of them programmed to something?
Yeah.
Every one of them?
All of them. Which might seem like a lot, but I mean, kind of like you would have on a mixing console. Like it looks like a lot of knobs, but it's a lot of the same function repeated per channel. And you might notice that I replaced some of the knobs, and that's to give me kind of like visual cues when I'm just like reaching for things, so I don't just get lost in a sea of knobs.
Right.
So
this is smart. It's a smart idea.
So the way I have it set up, most tracks will just have one column, right? So this is like my kick track. And I don't have it labeled because in the middle of a performance, first of all, there's usually not that much light. Anyway, you don't label the notes on your guitar or whatever, right? So like after a while, it just has to be muscle memory that I'm moving. I'm not even thinking. I just know where to reach for things. And then so the white knobs kind of indicate to me that there's a new track. So this is track number 2. And some of the synth tracks, I need more parameters. So then there'll be an adjacent row or column.
So just on the kick, like what do you have there?
The top knob is usually tune.
Okay.
Because I use mostly the analog synth for the kick drum. And what's nice about it is I could freely tune it and it just sounds good pretty much everywhere. And that's something I'll do during sound check is I'll just do a bunch of filter sweep, or not filter sweeps, I'll just be sweeping the tuning of the kick drum, and I'll listen in the room to spots where it makes the whole room resonate like crazy, which changes from venue to venue, sound system to sound system. And I'll just take like a mental note of where those spots are on the dial. And then I can kind of like choose to back off of that. When I really want to create emphasis or go and add more energy, I can just tune the kick drum right into that spot. Make the whole room shake. And then after that, I have the delay.
Okay, which you're controlling there. Okay, cool.
Which I actually don't use that much.
Yeah, on a kick, yeah.
I mean, a lot of people do that in techno to have that galloping rumble sound. And I have another technique I use instead that ends up being cleaner. And there's only one delay. I like to use it for the synths. And then after that, I have
distortion.
Distortion. Yeah, drive. And this is amazing because you can go from like a good basic kick drum to something that's really high energy and intense.
Right.
And it changes the whole intensity of the whole song just with this one knob. So it's kind of like a dial in the energy level knob. I use that a lot. And then after that, I have a high pass filter. So this is how I do kind of like, breaking down a section and then dropping it in. And then I have the amp decay. If I want a shorter thing, or if I just want it to take up all of the whole bottom end,
So this is the kick. You said this is synths. This is whatever else. Like, out of all of these, which instrument do you find yourself tweaking with the most during your set?
All of it. Okay. All of it constantly. I mean, that's the thing is like I only use there's 12 tracks, but there's 8 voices. To make it simpler, I try to just use 8 tracks so that I don't have to worry about a track choking another track.
Right.
Which could kind of get confusing when you're sequencing everything live, right? My amount of sounds I have is smaller, and I've noticed that because sometimes I'll use the TR-8S, and there's like I think 11 tracks on it.
Yep.
And just that difference from going to like 8 to 11, I noticed that sometimes I'm just like always adding more and more and more stuff in, and I end up with kind of like superfluous layers that aren't really adding to the song.
They're just there.
And on a club sound system, the less cluttered it is, the bigger the sounds are, and the cleaner it sounds because the rooms are like always very lively and very reverberant.
Yeah.
So it works.
Well,
better
that's why, like, with
Ableton.
my approach with the Ableton thing, like the stuff that you mix, like that's just 4 tracks, and then over top of that, I have another 4 through the TR-8S, and just that is like it's clean enough.
Yeah.
But there's definitely still some moments where I'm like, I need a little bit more.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's just like an eternal like voice is always just going to be there, but
I think it'll always be there. I think no matter
more.
Because if there'll always be that like need for more, but what you're looking for is like more feeling. You're not actually looking for more clutter.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's more about like honing what you have than it is about adding stuff in. Yeah, so that being said, because there's only so many sounds, I'm kind of constantly touching all of them, and they're not all in at the same time either.
Yeah. So do you use the mutes here, or do you mute things through?
Actually, on the sequencer.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, because the mutes on here is a sequencer mute, and I actually don't use the sequencer in the rhythm, which I know is like Elektron blasphemy because everybody loves the Elektron sequencers.
Yeah, they're great.
For what I'm doing, I'm loving this guy, the torso. Everything I had on here is kind of repeated for most of the voices.
Okay.
Unless it's a synth voice, in which case, let's say, let's take this one. So, same thing, tune.
And just to be clear, like, we're controlling sounds in the analog rhythm.
Yeah,
so
this is not making sound.
No, of course. I just wanted to be clear on that for anyone who might be confused about that.
Absolutely. And then, so then I'll have the reverb. This is my filter cutoff. And then the decay of the sound.
Nice.
And then the volume. But then I have all this extra stuff. So over here, the bigger knob, this is actually the envelope amount, the filter envelope amount. And then I have the filter attack and the filter decay. This stuff is just like super useful to have on hand. And then next to the filter cutoff, I have the filter resonance. 5. And then particular to this one, because this is the dual VCO, this changes the kind of like modulation between the two oscillators that are in that track, which helps me kind of create different sounds on the fly, just by randomly tuning this thing.
Very cool. 12 is the max that you have per track.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So then the other ones that have 12, it's essentially the same sort of setup?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So a kick, the dual VCO, which I use for mostly bass lines. Then this is my clap. Then I have like 2 synth layers, which the way I'm doing it is they're samples, but they're just waveforms that are being looped. So that way I can control the filter and the decay of the sound, and I can shape the sound the way I need on the fly. And so I have like 2 layers of that. So these are my 2 main synths, and then this one is another synth that is not waveforms, it's just one-shot samples. Synths. Over here, this is my hi-hat channel. It's a little particular because I actually did find that I wanted to use both a different sound for the closed and the open hi-hat. So this is the only one where I'm they're sharing a voice. So they're choking each other. And that's why there's a white knob up here, because this is actually like a secret volume for the closed hi-hat. But the decay for both the open and the closed is shared. Sharing this, and this is a filter also shared. And reverb send is also shared. So they're kind of like a unit. And the tuning for both of them is also shared.
That's kind of how the TR drum machines, like that's how they treat them as well. So you're kind of setting it up in that same sort of way. It makes sense to do it like that.
Yeah, it's the hi-hats is one instrument. And then I have my ride, and that's it. That's it. Cool. And then this last one is just effects. So this is these 2 are for the reverb. This is the tail, and this is to make it darker or brighter. So I'm actually often playing with that to create dramatic effects of big room, small room. I like contrasting these big washed out, kind of like deep, very reverby, cavernous sounding techno with like super dry, fast stuff. So I put a bigger knob on the delay time, and that's because it feels a little more precise when it's a bigger knob. You can dial it in better, and it's really nice that this has a display with a number on it. Because then I can put it on super locked to the tempo, or make it kind of
more rhythmic,
off kilter on purpose, and choose what I want to do. And then this is the feedback amounts, and then a high cut and a low cut
for the reverb,
for the delay.
Oh, sorry, the delay.
And so that's it. It's all mapped out.
Just to like demonstrate what this adds. So let's say you're putting together a project. You're like, I'm working on a live set. What's your idea of like transitioning into the next thing and into the next thing, into the next thing to create like a fully cohesive set? Because I find with like, especially with DAWLESS stuff, that's like the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, that's the prime reason why I'm not using the Elektron sequencer. I really battled with that for a long time. I
think everyone does.
Everyone does, because the machines are kind of like built for you to like create these intricate sequences, and then you're like, okay, now I did that. Now what? I'm using the rhythm in like the least Elektron type of way possible. I'm like, kind of like trying to strip away the like workflow that they've suggested.
Okay. Why?
So precisely for that reason of like, how do I transition out of this? What do I do with this?
So is this a controversial statement that you're saying that the Elektron sequencers don't lend themselves to transitioning well? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. For transitioning, no, they're not that great. People figure it out for, let's say, the Octatrack. There's some pretty great ways of doing transitions with that. But I mean, it's not an Elektron thing. It's most groove boxes or drum machines or synths kind of have that same thing, especially if it's a box that kind of does all the sounds.
Right.
Right.
So you're saying that the way around that is to have a separate, let's say, a separate sequencer like this. Is that your way of transitioning better?
Well, so actually my way out of it is, instead of having a pattern per song, I just jam out an entire set on the same pattern, and I'm just plucking in the sequences live on the fly. So technically, I could just do that on here. The reason why I do it with this is because this is really good at helping me propagate sequences and generating melodies on the fly very fast.
Okay. So you don't have like a bunch of patterns prepared throughout your set?
Zero.
Okay, so you're like 100% improvising everything on the fly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Honestly. That's a whole different skill. I didn't know that. I thought you had like maybe some patterns prepared beforehand, but...
And I've done this even on the TR-8S, where like I've showed up to shows where like that was literally the only thing I had, and then again, I'm not changing patterns. I'm just jamming on that one pattern continuously.
Okay.
And erasing things and plucking things in very fast. Everything's happening on here. The way I have this set up is actually kind of mirroring over here. So these four are these four, these four are these four, and then these four are these four. Mm-hmm. So if I want a new melody, I just do this. And now it's just putting in random notes. And then I just stop it from going random at some point. It just locks that in into a new melody.
Okay.
So, and I can choose the length of it if I want it to be a longer sequence.
Okay.
Or maybe I want it to be very short. So the way this works is there's a bunch of knobs that help to set the parameters on which it's going to randomize. Well, that's the way I'm using it.
Okay.
But then there's some things that I do a little bit less randomly. Let's say the claps. So in there, I can see the pulses. So now if I kick on the pulses, this is the sequence. So I can either plug things in, or I can say, give me more pulses, and then, or even more, or even more. So this is Euclidean sequencing.
Okay.
The way it's doing it. So a lot faster for me to turn a knob and get that many notes, or go back down to this, than it is to actually be plugging it in. Mm-hmm. And then also I can do stuff like telling it, oh, here, do some accents. So let's put the pulses up. More accents. Now there's like velocity going on. Instead of having to plug in all that velocity stuff at the same time.
Give me that one. I want some kick.
Let's go.
Okay, cool.
So already that's like really groovy, and all I did was turn a few knobs.
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome. But what I love about it is that I don't know exactly what's going to come out, but I have just enough control.
Okay.
And that's what I need. So like, let's say this kick drum, like I know I needed to do that 4 on the floor thing. I could deviate from that, but I can also come back to it with just a turn of a knob. So again, it's just the right amount of control.
Okay.
And the thing with Euclidean is it will kind of evenly distribute the notes in the sequence as much as it can. But sometimes you want, like, I don't know, let's say I have something sparse like that. That would like not be a Euclidean sequence, and that's what I like about this one is like I can also just do it like
if you want to,
style.
yeah.
There's just this piece that's kind of part of
okay.
This whole thing. This is the mod Dwarf. It's basically a computer in a guitar pedal. You can create multi-effect pedal boards inside of it, and there's this whole community of people making plugins and stuff for it.
Cool.
I really just have it set up to do mastering. This just goes into here. That way I can be kind of more or less level matched when there's DJs playing before and after me. It's not just like whatever I do will always be more dynamic than DJs, but you don't want it to be too dynamic because you're just way too quiet. And now I added these two recently, and this is just another MIDI controller for the Blackbox, and I'm just using this as a stripped down version of Ableton, really.
Okay.
So each one of these squares is a loop. I don't have any preconceived notion of when I'm going to use any of these loops. It's more like just in the moment, I know, oh, I need some tops, hi-hats, percussion-y things.
Those are all drum loops, or do you have some melodic stuff in there
Well,
too?
I have it by column, like I would in Ableton. So if I just go down the column, these are like a bunch of hi-hat-y things. Then these ones are like kind of similar, but more on the percussion-y, mid-high percussion-y loops.
Okay.
This one, these are some synth loops. I use these less. And then I have kicks and basses, and I barely use these. They're just here just in case.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Because the thing is, too, my previous live sets were like really heavily based on loops.
Yeah.
I felt like I was missing that expressiveness and that control I needed and the flexibility to go wherever I needed to go. But now that I've like had tons of time and figured out a setup that works the way I do, now it's like I'm reintroducing loops into the fold, and the way I'm approaching them is really different. Like I'm really not leaning on them. They're really like I usually just have one loop playing at a time, and it's not all the time. It's really just like spices that I throw into the mix every now and then.
Still a few other things to get into, but before all that, let's talk about today's sponsor, DistroKid. If you are someone who creates music, potentially like the music you've heard in this video, maybe that music is just sitting on your hard drive waiting to be released, well, that is a perfect reason to go with DistroKid. Here's a few reasons why they are the best option. There's a discount linked in the description of this video, which I encourage you to use. It's just over $20 a year to release unlimited music to all major streaming platforms. The thing that makes DistroKid amazing for independent artists is just the sheer amount of free promotional tools that they offer us. There is now a DistroKid iOS app, so you can check out your stats and information on your smartphone. Personally, one of my favorite free promotional tools is Hyperfollow, which is essentially a free link and bio link. I've been using it for years now to lead people to specific pages and help fund what it is that I do. And you could claim as many Hyperfollow pages as you'd like, free of charge. Just over $20 a year to release unlimited music. You keep 100% of your streaming earnings as well, which is another great deal. If you're an independent artist, to me, it's just a no-brainer. Join the team. There's over 1 million users using DistroKid. So yeah, join us. What's going on up here then? Like,
I actually only have these two knobs mapped at the moment. This is just like filter, like high pass, low pass, and then resonance for it. There isn't like a whole lot of stuff in the way that I'm using the Blackbox that I could map to make the most of it. Perfect.
I think you got enough, man.
I've got enough going on here.
Just there, it's like...
And that's the thing is like, yeah, I don't want to, if I'm adding other stuff in, it needs to kind of really be like straightforward and simple and not take too much of my time because a lot of my time is spent here.
Right.
This sound, this could never come out of this setup.
Yeah,
so it's kind of nice.
That's it, yeah.
It's nice to have the
vocal samples and stuff, yeah.
The two together really makes it sound full.
I've been thinking about doing like a sample-based setup like that, where you have access to basically any sample that you want. And then the dynamics and like the control could come from just the drums. So just using the analog rhythm for maybe just drums. Do you think that would be too much to have control over every element of the drums?
It's not a question of what the sound is. It's more like how many layers do you have?
Yeah.
And how much attention do the layers need from you?
Is it still musical at that point, you know?
Just because you have 12 doesn't mean all faders need to be up at a time.
True.
And I've noticed that the best way to take sounds out is to throw another sound in.
Right. What do you mean by that?
I've noticed here, it's like if I have this going, let's say, if I want to take this ride out, it's very like, it cuts the energy a bit. But if I want to like take it out and keep the energy, then I'll take that out and.
Okay, yeah.
You see how that feels different?
Yeah.
Just like switching the sound that's in. That took me a while to figure out.
Interesting.
But like once I figured that out, it was like,
pro tip.
Oh, okay. Like this is really a great way to keep a consistent energy and not make it keep flowing up and down and feeling like, oh, is he exiting a track? Is the track ending? I don't want to feel like anything's ending.
Right.
I want it to always just feel like you don't know where you are in the song. You can't tell if you've reached another song. It's just a continuous flow.
Right.
So to your point, sometimes having more channels is nice because then you can
do that.
Sweep things in.
Interesting.
Like that. So it's a question of restraints. Just because you have everything doesn't mean it should all be in. And in fact, with this, when I get to those moments, because sometimes they happen, I get there and I'm like, all my channels are in. I hate that. I hate that moment because it makes it really hard to figure out what to do after.
True. It's like, I have to go down now.
I have to go down. So then usually it's like, okay, well, let's go down in a really dramatic way and just strip everything out.
Right.
Just go back to bass and kick, you know? Oh yeah, there was one last thing I wanted to show off too that makes this setup really good compared to, let's say, modular. Not that you couldn't do this in modular, but it's very easy to do here. Okay, let's see. I've got this whole thing going. I've got these performance macros set up to do breakdowns.
Okay,
so like I could do this kind of thing, and then
you lock it.
Yeah, and then I'll just choose to take out all the high frequency stuff, and then like so dramatic.
Yeah, cool.
But that stuff is usually pretty hard to do in a hardware setup.
You know what I do for that? Use the
me.
RMX 1000.
Yeah. Also a great option.
Also great, yeah. Or the Octatrack is great for that sort of stuff too, like that. Those.
Yes.
Like as an effects mixer.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
perfect for that.
Absolutely. That's it. This is the setup thus far, and I have like a huge to-do list of things that I want to do.
Well, you mentioned that you wanted to add the what's it called?
The MX-12. Yeah, which is just the fader version of this.
And you would be taking this out?
Yeah, I would take this out.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, I would just be using 8 voices. So then my faders would be like for those 8 voices.
Yeah.
The first 8 faders, and then the last 4 would be doing this thing. So that's kind of awesome too, is like, just because you have separate machines around, it's nice to have a centralized place that you're controlling them from.
Yeah.
It makes it feel more like one cohesive ecosystem.
Yeah, plus you got faders. Faders.
Yeah, faders.
Let's go.
You know? Yeah, so, right now I'm getting away with it. Like, this is not rotary mixer type music, in my opinion. It's nice to be able to just bring things in really all at once, or just slam them out, which is hard to do with knobs.
Yeah.
But I get away with it because I got the mutes.